weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Superboy, Man of Tomorrow, number 4, written by Kenny Porter with art by Jahnoy, Lindsay, and Lucas Gattoni. And in this issue, we continue Superboy's run with the Cosmeteers, but as he does not know from the previous issue, it turns out that the Daxamite clone Trav has been going around and putting rings on people's fingers that they saved that allow him to telepathically control them later on. So we have just regular people being saved and clones who they have freed from the Dominator X control going on. So it's just such a weird idea because also at the end of the last issue, Dominator X says, I'm done with this Cosmeteer bullshit. I don't need them messing up my operations no more. The Dominators themselves told me to go screw myself. It's time to take some Dominator X revenge. I'm going to unleash my ultimate weapon on the Cosmeteers, where it's a being that was made up with all the powers that you could ever have from any alien species, and I'm going to unleash it on Superboy and Trav. And this thing comes down and just beats the holy hell out of Connor and Trav this whole time, to the point where I was hoping, once everything was said and done, that, like, you know, all the suspicions we had of Trav and, like, the mind control aspects that were revealed previously, like, maybe this would go away and we have to realize Superboy, like, you know, has a good idea about things. Maybe we have to work together as a team to overcome this thing. But no, the way that we overcome this is Trav's like, I am done getting my ass kicked. I'm going to activate everybody that I have mind controlled throughout the galaxy right now. Bring them here and dogpile on this monster.
Yeah, there's a couple of times in this. First off, I'm not a big fan of it. I haven't been from the start. It's okay, but it's not really something that, you know, is my kind of thing. So when I get into this, I was a little taken aback at first. I couldn't remember what happened. And then I'm like, oh yeah, Infinity. It's like a meso, this guy. So you end up where they're fighting. And I know you're desperately hoping the Cosmeteers would end up being somewhat good, so you can continue with them, and you want that team up like a Legion, you said.
Well, exactly. The previous issue really made it feel like this was like a modern-day version of the Legion of Superheroes, almost maybe like a precursor to what would one day become the Legion based off this early group, because we already have the United Federation of Planets that would one day lead to the Legion of Superheroes in the 31st century. So maybe this is also a precursor, a bunch of alien species, happen to be clones though, but alien species coming together for a better tomorrow that will share like rings and stuff like that. It just felt like Superboy being a part of a modern day Legion. And once we get in this issue, all of my dreams of that dash completely. We don't have legions, we just have assholes.
Yeah, and while it's going on, I felt like Homer chasing the roast pig. Is it still okay?
It's still good. It's still good.
Okay, well, Trav, oh well, there's a lot, but we still have, because I'm waiting at one point for the others to be like,
yeah, Pierre and Rotor, they're going to be on Superboy's side, right?
And they'll realize, oh my God, we've been duped. Like, oh no, they're in on it. Nah. I'm like, oh crap.
You got to crack some eggs to make an omelet, Superboy. Oh no.
And then at points, I'm even starting to think, well, they could be, oh no, they killed a Green Lantern. They're done. They're done. It's such a shame.
Even the idea, we killed the ultimate weapon of Dominator X, and just in a terrible, terrible way with a dog pile of like, mind controlled, alien clones and just people just coming around and being a weapon essentially. When the Green Lantern doll Taran shows, I'm like, I'll take it from here, everybody. And you see Pyrrha and Rotor just use their powers to just kill him completely. I'm like, yeah, there ain't no coming back from this at this point in time, because even if Superboy kept his mouth shut, you pretty much just killed a space cop. Everybody's coming for your ass.
That's the problem. I mean, when they kill Infinity, I'm like, okay, well,
that's a monster. It's an abomination.
Yeah, that could be pushed aside. You end up having a Green Lantern where, luckily, not, 2 days to retirement, just a week into the job. They're like, I really like it. I'm out here. I'm stopping bad people.
This is what happens when Kilowog's not alive to train new recruits.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you through all this, I even had this weird idea. Oh, wait a minute. They're doing this and they're going to end up at some point. Okay, turn off the cameras. This is all a dupe. And everybody's in, because even the point where Connor's like, I don't know. Did you get my message? Maybe no. We said, I thought that the ring just flew by. The guy just dead. I'm like, oh no.
And then I also having some weird ideas like, okay, like this is sector 2828. This is why Dal Taran's here. This is his sector. And like, obviously these people aren't a part of the sector as a whole, but I'm like, Superboy is here. He ain't got no fear in his heart. How about that ring go on Superboy and he can start evening the odds with all this? But the ring just kind of takes off. I'm like,
it takes off. I think the ring looks around and like, I'm getting the hell out of here. Like, this is a bad place. But
whenever you have a ring just fly off to find a new recruit, I always just hope it's one of those things where you have those wow moments, like when a ring goes on Superman or Batman or something like that, where you just have that wow moment. It means nothing ultimately to the overall story of anything going forward, but just for that moment, it could be really cool, but we don't even get that. Maybe
it's going to take a U-turn.
It's going to circle around the planet, come back?
Yeah, it's going to go around nobody else, so go to them, because that'd be cool. And here's the thing. you mentioned that because I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought he was going to get the ring. Once I saw, oh no, they actually killed him. But there's a bunch of things in this series, and again, we're not the ones writing it. It's Kenny Porter's story, so you can do whatever. But boy, you could have just set this up because I don't like them now, but I did like the Cosmeteers. I thought they kind of were cool. Seemed like something that'd be neat. Why couldn't you just have made this where they are trying to rescue some of their other teammates that were held by Dominator X, and then you could just have that fun with that? But it gets dark, and I think that's why I guess Kenny Porter wants to go dark here, but it's kind of a weird play.
To the point where Trav is like, I don't look, your power is greatly used on this team right now. It's just your stupid ass mind with your values and your hope and your Supermanisms. It's really bringing us down, Connor, so we don't need your ass. What I did during all our battles, I collected your dumbass blood. I used that blood to clone you, and I just didn't give that clone a mind of its own. So right here, we have a Superboy with all the powers that Connor has, but without the mind to fight back and cause all the trouble that Connor's currently causing. So on top of that, we have a clone of Connor Kent right now who's going to work for the Cosmeteers that Trev himself is going to telepathically control. And I'm just sitting there like, this never works out well. Every time we have a clone of Superboy, it just goes horribly wrong, like match. But I'm like, this is a clone of a clone. This is just going to end badly for everybody. And I'm like, is this going to be a new match going forward? Or is it even a worse match? Because at least Match had a mind that was, I would say, even better than Superboy's at the time when he was first introduced back in the 90s.
Yeah, and even then you have like Pyrrha and Rotor. I thought this would be the last straw. Oh my God, he's making a clone. Even Connor calls him out. You're all against us. And again, when we were talking about things earlier and doing all that, you even said that at one point you thought that maybe what the play will be is, oh my God, a Daxamite really pissed off, but they're going to come together, realize they're pretty much the same. They both had some bad circumstances. And then they'll go and Dominator X, the big, that didn't happen. Like, these guys are done.
Now, it just turns out that the Daxamite that wanted to be as powerful as a Kryptonian had his powers taken away because the powers mean, you're vulnerable to lead and pretty much can't go anywhere in the universe. He's just really upset that he had the possibility of being as good as a Superman, as being as powerful as a Superman, and he never will be. So that jealousy just runs strong, and we have to hate Superboy because of that. The worst part about this in the whole fight, though, it's just out of nowhere. Trav has a gauntlet that, hits Superboy with, yellow sun radiation right on the head, just grabs a hold of his head and blasts him with yellow sun radiation. I don't know where this gauntlet came from or how you activate it or how you set something up like that. But I just thought that, yes, you don't have your Kryptonian powers anymore, but you were born to be a weapon outside of that. Sadly, you were born to be a weapon because that's what you were, but you still have your TK abilities. They didn't do any TK things. And I'm like, did we just decide that that's all wrapped up with red, yellow sun situation? He should still be able to use these powers outside of his Kryptonian powers that came in.
And then Rotor runs by and pretty much uses the Klingon attack there, the death pinch. Boom! And he goes down.
The Klingon attack, the death pinch.
Yeah, the death pinch. When you're going with that, though, it's just a shame because I'm not loving this series anyway. It's okay. But when I'm going through, I'm like, I wanted to end this with, man, that's a cool team. I hope we see them again. I wanted to like them. And now all of a sudden,
they're going to be locked up in science cells for the rest of their life.
Yeah, well, I'm like, well, you do have that weird half-shirt look there, Trav. I'm not really down with that.
Well, you wouldn't be, but if you had the abs, you'd all be all about the half shirt.
I don't know. I might wear a tight shirt. I don't know if I'd go half shirt. Or maybe one of those mesh shirts, right? Those mesh ones. Those are cool, right? And a Jose Canseco glasses. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, when you end up where it seems, okay, let's all calm down. Green Lantern's here. Of course, it's not a real seasoned vet here that just ends up getting taken down. It's a shame. And like you said, the ring goes, and then they just take off and leave him for dead. But we go back to Earth, where you do have Kalex, who's in on the deal. And
trying to monitor Connor because, Kalex originally gave Connor the wristband to allow him to teleport into space and go on his grand adventure, but now it's disabled.
And I didn't quite, and I'm reading it, and it says, I actually thought this was John while I was reading it, even though he says, Kalex, have you seen Connor? John, Kara, and I, but I kind of zipped through that, and then I'm like, because it looks like a very young, more like John to me, but he ends up saying, and I'm telling you, Kalex throws some massive shade here, and I
as
really
he
like
should,
it.
Because we have Kalex speaking for pretty much all of the fans at this point for you have this amazing Superman family that's been going on since Rebirth happened, but Connor was left out this entire time. And even the idea where, it's been 2 weeks that Connor has been out working with the Cosmeteers trying to pave his way across space to show people what Superman means to the entire universe. And then it's 2 weeks later, and Superman, hey, somebody brought up the idea that Connor ain't been around. You seen him, Kalex? And the idea that, like, hey, I care about Connor. If you cared so much, Mr. Superman, why'd it take you 2 weeks to go look for him? Just leaving Superman looking like the biggest dick ever. And I'm thinking to myself, because they talk about it can't be easy for Connor with everything that's going on, a history that was rewritten around him where he wasn't a part of it. And that's like, it's one of those things where they try to make things make sense after, the New 52 happened where Connor wasn't really there, even though we had a version of Connor in the Teen Titans that was kind of erased to a degree. I have to imagine, but what did we have at the death of Superman? Like, what did we have in Infinite Frontier if everybody had the memories of these things happening, these big DC events where Connor was front and center with the reign of Superman, and like, how does anybody reconcile that, even with the Young Justice? Like, oh yeah, you're Connor Kent. We now remember you. It's always been weird to me how they're trying to reconcile this because it never makes sense.
But yeah, they treat him like Lane Staley and Alice in Chains. The people who cared for him so much found him decaying 2 weeks after he died. Damn it, Eric, I'm still with a PlayStation controller in his hand. Not even an Xbox, a PlayStation. Can you imagine it? But yeah, that is shade. Also, I like there's such a weird little aside here that I'm like, oh, are we setting up something here? Because almost like a book where Kalex is hitting the road. He even says at one point, he's like, yeah, I'd like to get out and about myself. I'm like, go for it, Kalex. Go and do it. I want that book. But you end up probably wouldn't want that book.
No, I don't want the Kalex. Hard traveling hero Kalex.
He'd go right to Jimmy Olsen. Those assholes would hit the road going to Canada. So you end up where all this is going on. And you do see a little bit of, hey, maybe, and it's Pyrrha. Maybe we could have at least took him to a planet where he wouldn't die or, I feel bad, but not bad enough. It's not going to do anything, but it really is starting to really push that Travis just bad. You got to get away from this guy. This guy is bad news, but you do end up having Connor stranded on that planet. We do go up to the Dominator X's secret lab because one of the things too is that when the dog pile is over, Trav yells to all the people who are being controlled, hey, you got that scent? Go get him, boys!
Hey, I know one of you guys has the power that can track this Dominator X. Go and do that and follow his scent back to where his lab is.
Yep, and they did. So they found him on planet Chalum, where I love the idea, and I thought it was going to play out more. Dominator X, while we know he's in big trouble, he's like, hey, can you turn off all those emergency alarms and things?
They're giving me a headache.
I'm real busy here. I'm like, maybe you should check those out there, Dominator X.
Don't tell Dominator X how to live his life.
It's because he's scratching it up on the wheels of steel, this guy. He's in Public Enemy. You end up where he's making another one of these infinities. He's right back to the drawing board, but that's when Trav and the Cosmic Tears show up, and they're ready to, go
What's
ham.
up, Dr. Ivo? Oh, man, my Amazo went down. Better make a new one.
Better make a new one. It's the same with everyone. So, yeah, you end up, we're back on planet Decidia. You do end up having a kid come and find, and Connor's like, oh, God, this is it. I'm going to die. Nobody's going to come and find me because the bracelet was broke, and he ends up passing out. But that's where these kids show up and like, oh my God, it's him. It's the Superboys. And he's got a hoodie.
It's so weird, though, that we have the idea that, Trav left him to die on that planet because it was a wasteland. Nobody could survive there. He, passes out eventually from, lack of yellow sunlight because he's still affected by the red sun, the radiation that Trav did to him. And there's nothing around. But I'm like, yeah, there's just kids hanging out here living. They got Superman t-shirts on. I'm like, I don't think this planet's that much of a wasteland, really,
So
Trav.
what you're saying, it's like, remember back with Man vs. Wild, and he's like, oh, in the great wilderness, and then they take two steps and they're on a highway. That's all it is. Trav versus Wild. I love the idea, like you're saying, not only do these kids just waltz up, but they got swag on. Yeah. And do you think the kid made it? Because he does say, hey, I saw the feed. I saw those feeds. You have a sweatshirt very similar to that, Eric.
Yes, I do.
Say, looks just like
hoodie.
You. And you, at one point, wore like a trench coat like that.
Formal coat?
You had some problems there, Eric.
I'm sorry that my wardrobe is different than shorts and a freaking hoodie.
Yeah, I don't know. Superman sweatshirt and a fucking trench coat. You end up in maybe watches in there. I don't know. You might be exposing yourself. I can never tell. But at the end, you do have that, earlier. Hey, I love when they do it, too. You know what my symbol stands for. It stands for hope. I wish that Trav, it stands for sucker. And I wanted to punch him then.
That's you and Trav to be out of nowhere. Sucker.
Yeah, that S is for sucker. But you end up with these kids will help him out. That's cool. It shows that the hope's alive, Eric. So there you go. And then you have next, Reign of the Cosmic Tears. Oh, shit. there's bad things involved. But what would you give this?
Ultimately, this is a action-packed issue we have with like Infinity versus Superboy and Trav, and then everybody who's been affected by Trav against Infinity to the point where you have a Green Lantern show up and you have the entire Cosmeteers versus that, and then against Superboy. It's just all of this stuff hitting a road just to really pinpoint the idea, but really to express the idea that the Cosmeteers are not the do-gooders that we once maybe thought they were, and there's no real recourse in turning them back to goodies at this point. It's just really sad to me. And, Superboy may be going after, I'm just really hoping that the book doesn't devolve into Superman, saving Superboy or any of those things.
I want Superboy to because they seem to be looking to where he is and things like that.
Exactly. And I don't want the Superman family to show up and do all this because I want this to be Comics Adventure where he is good enough to take care of anything, clean up any of his messes that he might have started here. But I just really hope that, imagine that, though. I don't know any other way to do it. Maybe they show up and stay on the sidelines and watch Connor just, take care of business.
I was going to say that they show up and say, listen, they have to really stress that he's capable himself, but still help,
you need
maybe.
to, because if the rest of them show up, if they show up, they're going to take care of the problem, which is going to make Superboy look like, he's not capable. And if they don't show up, it's just them ignoring Superboy lost his face some more. I'm like, you can't do anything except for, come out, stand on the sidelines and watch Superboy take care of the job himself. But it just doesn't feel like it's enough there until, he does take care of the job and they all around there hugging you. You are a Superboy, the man of tomorrow.
I would think that the play would be, Superman, John, and Kara. They show up and then they're about to help and Superman says, no, let the boy fight. And then they watch from a distance. He doesn't know they're there. He does his thing. And then afterwards they kind of, oh man, you did great. Let's hug it out. Let's go home. You jerk, you stupid clone. Let's get out of here. And they leave. But it would have been a real shame if Connor, after all this, goes home to Earth and he's like, oh man, you guys, you missed me. They're like, what? You were somewhere? At least Kalex has, told them. Kalex,
Connor's best friend, Kalex.
I love the one point where Kalex is telling this all, and then Superman says, listen, you're not in the wrong here, Kalex. I'm going to beep, boop, boop. No shit, Superman. Screw you. I don't need your deal. But Kalex is pretty good. I think he stole the show. But what would be your score?
I'm going to go with a 6.3 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a 6. I'm just a 6. It's okay. It's nothing that is, going to wow me, but it doesn't get me that angry. It did take me a while to get through this issue. But yeah, it is. It is, especially when it's, I don't know, when it's words, Eric. Especially when it's in English. I have a lot of problems. You didn't know that English is my 5th language.
There's no 4th.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.